You wake up early, you commute to work, you complain about your boss, your hours, your commute. It feels like the worst part of your day, but somewhere in ancient Rome, a man walked into a dark stone tunnel and knew there was a real chance he would never walk out. His job wasn't glamorous, it wasn't even respected, but it was the job that kept the largest empire on earth from collapsing into its own filth, and it was one of the deadliest professions a Roman could hold. You've heard of gladiators, you've heard of soldiers. Their danger was loud, public, celebrated even, but the real answer is far stranger. The most dangerous job in ancient Rome wasn't fought in an arena. It didn't come with armor or applause. It happened beneath the streets, in the dark, in the silence, in a place most Romans never thought about at all. This is the story of the men who kept Rome alive from below. Rome was the first city in the world to hold over 1 million people. Think about that. 1 million humans packed into narrow streets with no plumbing systems like the ones you use today, no flushing toilets, no sewage trucks, no sanitation department, just human waste, animal waste, and industrial runoff, all needing somewhere to go, and that somewhere was the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Drain, built originally to drain marshland, so the city could even be constructed. The Cloaca Maxima grew into one of the largest sewer systems in the ancient world. It ran beneath the forum, beneath the markets, beneath the temples where senators debated the fate of nations. Rome's grandeur was built directly on top of a system almost nobody wanted to think about. But someone had to maintain it. Someone had to walk into those tunnels. Someone had to clear the blockages, remove the debris, keep the water moving so the whole city didn't flood with its own waste. That someone was usually a slave, sometimes a criminal, sentenced to labor as punishment, sometimes a poor freedman with no better options. Whoever it was, their job put them somewhere between forgotten and feared. Why feared? Because the tunnels weren't safe, not even close. The air inside was thick with methane and hydrogen sulfide, gases produced by decomposing waste in an enclosed space. Modern toxicologists have studied ancient sewer conditions and confirmed what Roman workers likely learned the hard way. In low ventilation, these gases build up fast. Breathe enough of them and you don't just get sick. You can lose consciousness in minutes. You can die without ever knowing what hit you. Historian Anne Koloski Ostro, who has spent decades studying Roman sanitation, describes the sewer workers as some of the most overlooked laborers in the ancient world. Overlooked by history, not by death. And gas wasn't the only danger. The tunnels could flood without warning during heavy rain, turning a narrow stone corridor into a drowning chamber in seconds. Structural collapses were common in older sections of the system, sections that had been built and rebuilt over centuries by different hands with different standards. Rats, insects, and disease thrived in the dark, wet conditions. A small cut could become a fatal infection. A person could disappear into that darkness and simply never be found. Here's the part that should stop you. There was no rescue plan. There was no team standing by at the surface, no harness, no rope, no partner checking in every 10 minutes. If something went wrong 200 feet into the tunnel system, you were on your own. Nobody was coming. Why did Rome accept this? Why did a civilization capable of building aqueducts that still stand today, capable of concrete that has outlasted 2,000 years of weather, tolerate such primitive and lethal conditions underground? The answer says something uncomfortable about how societies value labor. The people doing this work weren't citizens with political power. They were slaves, convicts, the poor. Their deaths weren't recorded the way a senator's death was recorded. Their names weren't carved into monuments. Their sacrifice, and it was a sacrifice, kept the empire's most visible achievements standing while their own existence stayed invisible. You do the same thing today, in a different form. Think about the infrastructure that keeps your city running. Sanitation workers, utility repair crews, the people who go underground or up into the dark to fix what breaks so quietly that you never notice it was broken. You rarely think about them until something stops working. Rome had the same blind spot. It just had sharper edges. There's a reframe here worth sitting with. Rome is remembered for its marble, its senate, its legions. But none of that survives without what happened underground. The aqueducts brought water in. The sewers took waste out. One system gets statues, the other gets silence. Ask yourself why. Psychologists who study perceived status and labor have long noted a pattern. Visible work gets rewarded. Invisible work, even when it's more essential, gets ignored. A soldier's danger is public, dramatic, framed as heroic. A sewer worker's danger is private, grim, framed as unfortunate. Same risk of death, completely different social reward. The Romans weren't unusually cruel for thinking this way. They were unusually honest about it. They didn't pretend the sewer workers mattered. Modern societies often do pretend, praising essential workers in public while underpaying and underprotecting them in practice. At least Rome's indifference was consistent. Back in the tunnels, life for these workers followed a grim rhythm. Descend at dawn, when the flow was lowest. Clear blockages by hand or with simple wooden tools. No masks, no protective gear beyond whatever cloth they could wrap around their face. Work by torchlight, which itself was dangerous, since open flame near methane pockets could trigger explosions. Surface again if you were lucky, exhausted, sick, but alive. Some workers developed chronic respiratory illness from repeated gas exposure. Skin conditions from constant contact with waste and stagnant water were common. Life expectancy for this kind of labor is difficult to calculate precisely, since Roman records rarely tracked individual laborers of low status. But historians studying comparable pre-modern sanitation work estimate the physical toll was severe and cumulative. This wasn't a job you retired from. It was a job that wore you down until you couldn't do it anymore, one way or another. And yet the system worked. That's the strange, uncomfortable truth. The Cloaca Maxima functioned for centuries, some sections remaining in use for over 2,000 years. Parts of it still exist beneath modern Rome today. Engineers still study its design. The genius belongs to the architects. The survival belongs to the workers nobody named. Here's the modern mirror, the thing that should follow you out of this video. Every city you've ever lived in, every convenience you take for granted, sits on top of labor you don't see and don't think about. Clean water, waste removal, power lines, data centers. Somewhere, right now, someone is doing dangerous, unglamorous work so that your version of civilization keeps running smoothly above them. Rome built an empire on marble, and it lasted because of mud. Tonight, when you flush a toilet without a second thought, you're relying on a system that traces its philosophical roots straight back to that dark Roman tunnel. The engineering has changed. The invisibility has not. You still don't know the names of the people who keep your city functioning. Rome didn't either. Maybe that's the real answer. The people who hold civilization together are rarely the people civilization remembers.